Kia ora, good evening. 1 million New Zealanders started life in another country, according to latest Statistics New Zealand figures, with 500,000 of those calling Auckland home. Today, 19 new Kiwis swore allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth before Mayor Tim Shadbolt at a ceremony in the City Council chambers.
Mr Shadbolt reminded those taking the oath or making an affirmation of allegiance that for the last 30 years Invercargill has had the fastest declining population of any city in New Zealand, and that their choice to make the city their home was a good one. Mayor Tim also pointed out that New Zealand is a nation of volunteers and that he encouraged the newcomers to take a proactive role in their new community. The 19 new Southlanders come from all four corners of the globe: 5 Filipinos, 6 South Africans, 6 Brits, 1 Thai and an American.
The behaviour of duck shooters and culture of the sport has changed significantly in recent years, with hunters recognising the need to be safe with firearms. And while alcohol is present in mai-mais, it's generally after firearms have been put away. That's according to local fish and game staff, who undertook an aerial count recently and say stock numbers are good. But as usual, Southerners are a little slow to get licensed.
So far sales have been pretty good. We have a bit of a flurry prior to the peaking day when people peg their mai-mais, and that's on a par with previous seasons. So duck hunting popularity has continued to build over the last few years, and it looks like with good numbers of ducks around this year, it'll be as popular as ever. There's no test associated with getting your licence. Some countries do have that in terms of bird identification, and a number of other, in some instances there's a marksmanship sort of test as well. We don't have that. I might struggle myself at times, to be honest, but no, they get issued a regulation brochure and booklet, which also has a code of conduct in there as well, and we certainly encourage people to abide by that, and by and large that's what we observe out in the field when we're ranging.
Duck is on the menu for 3 months from May 3rd, and this season there's no change to bag limits.
The most commonly shot duck in Southland is the mallard, and people are allowed 15 mallards per day for opening weekend. It drops back to 10 per day after opening weekend.
Non-toxic shot must be used within 200 metres of a water body.
Lead shot, if ducks ingest it, they can become poisoned by that, so people are restricted to using steel shot, which isn't toxic if ducks do happen to ingest spent shot that's lying around.
As far as where ducks can be shot, there's no duck hunting on national parks. Hunters should check with landowners first or claim a spot on public land.
Most landowners are very obliging. Having said that, duck hunting in Southland is so popular, there's not a lot of spare ponds. People have changed, access to ponds has changed a little bit with the change to dairying. You know, there's new staff on those properties, and changing land ownership means people do get sort of disenfranchised from the place that they used to hunt. A big part of the challenge of waterfowl hunting is not only getting the birds within shotgun range, but also shooting them while they're flying, because you've got to shoot in front of the bird to be able to hit it.
Rangers will be particularly busy on opening weekend due to the relatively small window of opportunity to catch lawbreakers.
It's a big part of opening weekend for fish and game staff and our honorary rangers to go and talk to hunters. We try and chat with as many people as we can. Ensure that people are licensed, sticking by the rules, possession-led shot, those sorts of things. We'll have some police with us again this year. We have for the last few seasons, and they'll be spreading the word, I guess, around appropriate use of alcohol and firearms and firearms licensing.
Many hunters are getting on with annual mai-mai maintenance to make sure everything's in good working order.
We're only just about to start it really, but there's a team coming in to try and improve the vista of the place, and so we're ready for opening day of the season.
Around a dozen regulars shoot 4 ponds on this property not far from Invercargill.
It was pretty promising to see sort of 20 ducks fly off. Then we probably should have had a shot with the camera to prove that they're certainly about anyway.
And the group will be well prepared for action on the first day of the season.
We have guys coming in from all points of the country for the weekend, so we spend Friday night in the mai-mai and tell tales and then prepare ourselves for the following morning and get out and have a shot first light.
Margot Southland, South Today News. It was all dribble, defence and dodging on the community courts at Stadium Southland today as hundreds of youngsters played basketball. Up to 350 young people put skills they'd learned to the test in a tournament environment for a few hours. The Southland Basketball Association and Sports Southland joined forces to hold the basketball tournament as a finale to coaching by Southland Sharks players over the past 6 weeks. Kiwi Sport and Invercargill City Council funded basketball sessions run by the SBA at several South Invercargill schools this term. Sports Southland says there's evidence children have joined clubs as a result of exposure to sports in schools. Stay with us after the break. An extended interview with retiring SBS Bank Chief Executive Ross Smith. Welcome back. A week ago, SBS Bank Chief Executive Ross Smith announced that he would be stepping down from the role he's held since 1992, when the then building society was adjusting to life in a deregulated banking environment. Mr. Smith has been at the helm during times of great transition as the Southland Building Society grew into a nationwide institution and attained bank status. Hunter Andrews asked Mr. Smith what his first priorities were as he walked in the door 22 years ago.
For me, it was making certain that we had the right infrastructure in the business to be able to get out there and compete. But right close behind that was changing the whole culture of the organisation. I mean, we'd been around in those days for 120 odd years, and we'd opened the doors at 9 o'clock in the morning and people had walked in, because that's the way the old building societies did business. Parents insisted that their children open an account with the building society. But deregulation changed that and gave a whole lot more opportunities to consumers. So we had to change the way in which we did business, and that was getting people to be more proactive, more relationship based, and not just expecting people would walk in the door.
How important for you was that the SBS evolve into a bank that it eventually did attain in 2008? Was that the goal? And did you think it would attain it sooner?
Well, it was interesting because it had always been on the agenda as something that we should be looking at it. But to be honest, it was really the global financial crisis that triggered us that then was the right time. And we made the decision in late 2007, early 2008, I think it was, to pursue it. And to be fair, the chairman of the day, Acton Smith, was hugely passionate about things when he got his mind to it, and it was really a team effort between Acton Smith, our chair, myself, and Tim Lone, our CFO. We had a project to pursue a bank registration, and it was an exciting time for us because we were one of the more recent small organisations to get bank registration in New Zealand, and in fact the first building society anywhere in the world that actually had bank registration. So it was exciting.
What was so right about that global financial crisis for SBS then to make that move?
Well, I think there was a lot of things happening at the time. There was a lot of distrust about the financial sector. There was a lot of finance companies that had failed. In fact, I think somewhere in the vicinity of 60 of those. And so almost by default, the non-banks were all put into one pile, and we were a non-bank at that stage. And we felt that probably wasn't the right field to be playing in. The banking system in New Zealand was very strong and still is, and we just felt that was the right time for us to move out of the non-bank sector and into the bank sector, because it did come with the sort of credibility that we felt as an organisation we certainly had.
What were your thoughts? Obviously deregulation in the States began with the Reagan administration, and progressively, what were your thoughts as you were watching the subprime issue emerge? Were you conscious in going, well, look, something is going to happen here, or did it take you by surprise, or was it quite predictable?
I'm not saying, I wouldn't say it took us by surprise, but I also wouldn't say it's totally predictable. But we were, having been to conferences in the United States and to banking conferences, we understood the process of loan origination and loan generation, and we could not understand how these loan originators could originate loans, be incentivised for them, but take no credit risk. I mean, that was essentially a recipe for disaster, because they were motivated by their commission rather than the writing of the loan. As a bank, when we write a loan, we have to make sure it is a good credit risk because it sits in our books and we expect it to be repaid. But in America they were selling them off, and primarily to sort of quasi-government owned organisations such as Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and they had no responsibility thereafter. They then packaged them up and sold them off to unsuspecting investors, and so yeah, looking from the outside, and certainly it's a lot easier in hindsight, it certainly seemed to be a recipe for disaster. But I think that if nothing else, the global financial crisis has made us all sit up and watch what we do. And when I was growing up, we all paid 20% deposit, so it's not as if it's something particularly new. We did have to. I mean, the difference is that we weren't buying houses like you are in Auckland these days of 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 as your first home, and obviously to have a deposit of that size at 20% makes it pretty challenging. But then they can always come down south. It's a lot cheaper.
Let's talk about that saving mentality in New Zealanders. My parents certainly saved a quarter of their first home in the 60s to attain that goal of a first home. Has subsequent generations lost that ability? We all live with HPs and overdrafts and credit cards. Is that a good or bad thing?
Well, it can be good, but I don't think it is totally good. I think that the younger generations have been spoiled a little by their parents. When I grew up, my parents grew up through the Depression, so they imposed those sort of disciplines on us. If you didn't have the money in your pocket, you didn't spend it. And I guess we've all moved away, and we've all been guilty of bringing our kids up in a little more luxury, I suppose. And it's fair to say they don't have the same disciplines around money, or don't have the same understanding of money, and I don't think that's healthy. I think we need to get back to greater responsibility of handling money and understanding what we should and shouldn't be doing. Credit has been too easy to get, and you only have to look at some of the tertiary packages that some of the larger banks are offering, where you can get an interest-free overdraft. I mean, $2,000 and it's interest-free. I mean, that does not encourage good behaviour. I mean, it might be seen as, yep, it's a tough time at university and I need some cash, but invariably there's too many people out there who are utilising that for the wrong purposes.
Your retirement, obviously this is why we're talking. Are we going to lose your skills in this community?
Well, no, you won't, because I will be involved in a number of organisations still here in Invercargill, but I am moving to Queenstown. I've built a house there, and
just up the road.
Just up the road, so it's only 2 hours. But I'm already on a couple of boards here, and that will be something I'll retain until they deem me too old to contribute, but no, it won't be lost to the community. And look, the community of Invercargill and Southland has been fantastic for me and my family. And my girls grew up here, and they roll their R's, so they see themselves as Southlanders, even though I'm a staunch Cantabrian. So it's been great.
And that's all we have time for tonight. Sport is along next after the weather. From the news team, good night.